I'm Patrick Byers, retired Horticulture Field Specialist and Produce Food Safety Specialist with University of Missouri Extension. Thank you for joining us for this series of videos on-farm produce food safety. In this video, we'll discuss the interface of produce and animals. Animals are present on most farms. These may be domesticated animals such as cattle, perhaps pets such as dogs and cats that farmers have control over. In other cases, these animals may be wild or feral animals, large animals such as deer, smaller animals such as raccoons or possums, feral dogs, feral cats, and birds. In these cases, the farmer has less control over these animals. But we have to recognize that the presence of animals poses risks. The manure that animals produce can be a food safety risk if it comes into contact with produce. Farmers have a higher degree of responsibility when it comes to domesticated animals or pets. These animals should be, whenever possible, excluded from produce areas. In the case of pets, perhaps they can be confined on leashes or in runs. In the case of domesticated animals such as poultry, livestock, those sorts of things, those animals should be kept in confined areas with fences that will work. In the case of feral or wild animals, this is more of a challenge because the farmer has less control over their activities. But things such as fencing produce areas, using repellent tactics to keep birds or other animals out of produce, these are all ways that farmers can reduce the presence of animals in produce fields. Animal poop certainly poses a risk if it comes into contact with the part of the crop that we're going to harvest. Poop carries the germs that can make people sick, and whenever there is evidence of poop, this can be a serious situation. The first step, of course, is to try to exclude animals from produce areas. It's also important to be vigilant when working in produce areas, and if poop is identified, note those areas and clean up the situation. You must always remember that poop carries the pathogens that can make people sick. And if poop contacts produce, this can be a serious situation. Farmers should be vigilant during crop production and especially at harvest to look for evidence of animal presence in produce fields, and especially for evidence of poop. If poop is found, a reasonable approach is first of all to mark the area where the poop was noted, destroy any produce that has been visibly contaminated with poop, establish a buffer zone around the area where the poop is noted, because poop can spread, and sometimes it's not immediately obvious if that poop is spread. So a buffer area can be helpful to provide a margin of safety. The next step is to decontaminate the area. Again, a reasonable approach would be to take the poop, remove it with a shovel, place it in a bucket, carry it out of the field, dispose of it properly, clean and sanitize the bucket and the shovel, and then be sure to wash your hands after working with poop. So in conclusion, remember that it's important that everyone on the farm be trained in safe produce handling practices. In the case of animals and produce, first of all, domestic animals and pets should be kept confined, should be kept away from produce fields. And in the case of wild animals or feral animals, farmers should put into place practices to minimize the presence of these animals in produce fields. If evidence is found that animals have been in a produce field, and especially if poop is found, take appropriate measures to decontaminate the site and make sure that this doesn't pose a food safety hazard. I'm Patrick Byers, retired Horticulture Field Specialist and Produce Food Safety Specialist with University of Missouri Extension. Thank you for joining us for this series of videos on produce food safety.